The next thing I want to go over is a thing called the pan law. In the last video, we went over the idea of putting the same signal in both speakers. This creates the illusion that the sound is coming directly from the middle, even though we don't actually have a center speaker. But there's a downside to this technique. If we take a given signal and put it into two speakers instead of one, it cuts the signal going into each speaker in half, which is about a 6 dB drop in level in each speaker. Now in a perfect world, we shouldn't hear that difference, because it should combine to be the same. 1/2 plus 1/2 equals a whole. But room ambience and acoustics affects this level, and we tend to hear a drop in volume when we pan something in the middle versus panning it in only one of the speakers. Also, when you do a panning effect from left to right and back again, we want that level to stay consistent throughout. Check out this drum loop panning from side to side. Notice it drops a bit in level in the middle. So the pan law is meant to compensate for this drop in level by increasing the volume a bit as the signal is panned to the middle. The default on most DAWs is -3 dB, instead of the natural decrease of 6 dB. But it can also be changed if you want. Let's take a look at this with a test tone. And we'll observe the meter on the stereo bus. Notice when we pan it left or right, the level on the meter is 0. But if we put it in the middle, it drops to -6 dB on each side. Now if we change the pan law to -3 dB, which is the default, it only drops to 3 dB in each side. And it's the same for the other options. But also notice, if we keep it to one side, the level stays consistent no matter what we set the pan law to. It's only when we pan it in the middle, or anything but hard left or hard right, that the pan law setting affects our levels. Now keep in mind, it doesn't really matter what you set this to, as long as you set it before you start mixing or getting levels. If we change it after the fact, it will affect our mix. Everything panned in the center will change compared to everything panned hard left or hard right. But if you set it up for your preference before you start, you'll be compensating along the way, so it really shouldn't matter, other than using panning effects and making sure that sweep has a consistent level. But it's definitely worth understanding this stuff and checking your DAW's default to make sure that you're happy with the setting. Personally, I tend to use the default. So anyway, that's how the pan law works. I hope this makes a bit more sense to you now, as I know it could be confusing. So let's move on to the next video. Let's go.